What's up? Okay, let's just get into it. You guys can see the title. You already know. Pretty Little Liars, Season 3, Episode 5 review. Let's get into that very quickly. Alright, so apparently Miss Aria has been spending money for her wonderful boyfriend, Mr. Fitz. The good old Mr. Fitz and Aria. We see him all the time. It's like they never get old. But apparently, since Mr. Fitz lost his job and he's technically unemployed, he kind of gets offended with the fact that she spent money on him. I look at it this way. A man's pride is a very delicate thing. No offense to any men out there, but I'm just saying. Y'all got a lot of pride. Women, we have pride too, but I don't know what it is about women spending money on men. I never understood that. But he got upset about that. Or at least he seemed upset. Then next thing that I have in my notes, I actually have notes for this, so this is pretty cool. There's an ambulance, and I believe also a police car, that drive up to the Reynolds household. Let me look at the camera. They drive up to the Reynolds household, and you see Garrett's mom being pulled out on a stretcher. She's obviously very sick. And then Aria looks, and she sees the black hoodie figure. To me, it looked like the hoodie was just floating. So I wasn't 100% sure, but apparently, according to Aria, she saw A just standing there watching this entire scene as the girls are watching it too, which automatically made me go back to, I cannot remember exactly what episode it was. It was one of the earlier ones. I mean, we're only on episode 5. But remember when Aria was in the bathroom and I don't know if she hallucinated. She thought she saw A and she was sitting on the bathroom floor crying. To me, it feels like Aria is the one who sees A everywhere, so I don't know. But apparently, the girls believe her and think that that really was A who was watching. Paige. Y'all remember Paige. She and Emily had a little thing going on. She comes back into the picture. It was actually very nice seeing her again on screen. And they talk a little bit, and, Paige says she thought that Emily was just avoiding her, which technically with everything Emily's been going through, you can kind of say she really wasn't. She just has a lot on her plate with senior year, catching up on her finals or her exams that she missed and things like that. Then look who shows up. Jenna. Jenna shows up, but she looks a little different. Did y'all notice that? She looked something was slightly off. What was it? Oh yeah! No glasses and no cane. And when I say cane, I mean the little, I don't know the proper word for it. When you've seen them, you know what I mean. She's just out, walking around like, hey, how you doing? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you can see. It's a miracle. Like, teachers are coming up and talking to her and stuff. Emily's just like, what happened to a low profile, girl? Like, what's going on? What you trying to prove? But she was there giving out invitations for her birthday party, which is pretty much, I guess, the main scene of the entire show, the entire episode so far. So I'll get into the birthday party in a little bit. So Emily, of course, she gets an invitation to go to Jenna's birthday party. And everyone does. Even Mr. Fitz gets one. So that's when the girls start to figure something must be up about this birthday party. But back to Emily. She gets an invitation, but she's being forced to work at the party because that's where the party is happening. And while she's there, she overhears the photographer and Jenna talking about the photographer's assistant. Apparently the assistant did something, like hasn't paid for something or whatever. And she was just talking about that, and Emily overhears it. And I believe what happens a little bit earlier, oh, I remember. It was when Aria and Mr. Fitz, the whole situation with her buying food for him, she sees Lucas at the photographer's studio banging on the door saying things like, let me in, I need to get my stuff, and stuff like that. And then he just, like, runs away. And Aria is a witness. Aria witnesses a lot of stuff. Anyway, so that happens. Hanna, she's depressed. She's listening to sad music. She's very dressed down, which to me, that's how I would dress. I mean, I didn't think she looked bad. She just overdoes it a lot with her outfits. And her mom notices that, and they talk a little bit. Hanna goes off to school, which she does not do. She just walks back in the house and sits down, skips school, little bad child. But one thing she said that really irked my nerves, here I go again, talking about Miss Hanna. Here we go. Something else she said that irked my nerves was about working at the church and like handling clothes. She was like, yeah, but new clothes, not old ones. I was like, Hanna, if you don't shut up. Anyway, so since Hanna did skip school, her mom still made her go to the church and sort through clothes, and Emily's jacket shows up. Yeah. The one that she was wearing from the first episode of the season, but she didn't have when the girls went to go, find her at the graveyard. So that jacket shows up. Like I said before, let me get back to what happened with Garrett's mom. So Garrett is actually getting let out to see his mom again. Apparently, she slips into a coma. And he's being let out so he can go see her, bring her some flowers, and he wrote a note for her. Well, Spencer thinks that something is up with that. So she's at the hospital, but what happens is Wilden is there also and prevents her from following Garrett and seeing what's really going on. And what do I have right here? See, I can't even read my own handwriting. So back to the party now. Aria and Mr. Fitz show up after much, Aria didn't beg, but you get it. She said she wanted to go. Run to the photographer, and the photographer mentioned how she was holding Lucas, it turns out he was her assistant. And after the girls put two and two together, they figured Lucas was the one who took the pictures of them at the graveyard and is blackmailing them. Which is why he wanted to get into the photographer's studio so badly, was because he needed to get back that stuff. So Aria's talking to the photographer, who she actually took a class with. So the photographer remembers her. And she mentions, she's looking for a job and she would love to be the photographer's assistant. So all happens at the party. Now Paige is at the party too, and she starts acting kind of odd. She basically is drinking out of the flask that Emily gave her. Now do you remember, Emily had the flask and was drinking in the first episode. And I kind of figured, something told me that something wasn't right with the fact that Emily couldn't remember anything from that night. But I'm going to get into that in a quick minute. So Paige is drinking. Jenna goes over and confronts her because she's just sticking her finger in the cupcakes and just going all over the place with it. Paige walks off. She stumbles, cracks her head on something, and she needs to go to the hospital to get stitches, which does happen. And apparently when Paige gets out, she talks to Emily and she says that, of course, they found the alcohol in her system, yeah, but there was something else in there that she didn't recognize. And so Emily said, okay, all right. And eventually Emily does go to look it up. But right before that, Hanna shows up with the jacket. And Emily looks the jacket over, and it is her jacket. And she's like, where did it come from? Like, the box that came to the church, do you know where that box came from? And Hanna said no, she just didn't know yet. They didn't know yet. Then out comes Garrett. Nate is at the hospital too with Emily while they were like looking after Paige. And then Nate sees Garrett and goes off and tries to beat the guy up. But of course there are police officers there to stop him. So, back to the party. Aria, she pours water or some liquid on the photographer's case. And Aria eventually goes back to the photographer's studio, finds Lucas's things, and pulls out some of the negatives. And if you guys don't remember what negatives are, it's when you take pictures and stuff, and it's that like brown type of film and everything that has the pictures on them, and you hold it up to the light and you can see it. So when she leaves, Lucas is standing there, and he's like, I need to get in. But she won't let him. Luckily, Mr. Fitz shows up, because I really thought that those two were about to start like beating each other up. And Aria and Lucas, not Lucas and Mr. Fitz. So Aria is looking at the negatives while she's on the phone with Emily, who's looking up this drug that they found in Paige's system. She looks it up, and apparently the number one side effect is memory loss. So as Aria is looking through the negatives, she opens up the second container, and out comes the pills that were in Paige's system. So if Paige was drinking from that flask and that drug was in there, and Emily was drinking from the flask in the first episode, but she can't remember anything that happened the night at the graveyard, then obviously it was the pills that were messing with her mind. So, now that I've rambled on about that for a good almost 11 minutes, hope you guys enjoyed this review. I think this review turned out pretty darn awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I may have missed a few little details, like when Spencer went into Garrett's mom's room, and she read the note that Garrett left in the flowers, but there was something under the little hospital band that, you know, those things that you just can never get off unless you cut it when you leave the hospital. There was a little note under it, and she read it, and I have it. I believe it said, April Rose has the proof, or something. And we don't know what that means until this upcoming review I'm about to do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode 5 review for Pretty Little Liars, and I'll catch you in the review for episode 6. Take care, guys.